Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm meteorologist Stephen DiMartino. Well, we certainly have a very cold and active pattern over the Northern Mid-Atlantic this Monday. Now, what we have in place is an area of low pressure that has basically bombed out over Maine, and as a result, we have this strong northwesterly flow and Arctic air moving into the Northern Mid-Atlantic. How cold is it? Well, temperatures are only in the mid-30s this afternoon for highs. That's roughly about 8 to 10 degrees below normal for this time of year. So we are seriously dealing with a rather impressive Arctic air mass. In addition to the cold air, we also have snow flurries and snow showers throughout the region, producing some slick road conditions at times. But overall, I'm not expecting much in the way of heavy snowfall in any way, shape, or form. Let's take a look at the radar picture. On the radar, we can clearly see bands of snow developing basically from the Great Lakes moving into the Northern Mid-Atlantic. What's happening is that winds at the surface up to 500 millibars is basically from the northwest, and those northwesterly winds are picking up some of the moisture from Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And as the moisture moves across towards the Northern Mid-Atlantic, New York City and Philadelphia metropolitan area, some of the moisture is becoming snow showers via some mid-level disturbances. Now, because the air is so dry, where dew points are in the teens and lower 20s, a lot of these snow showers are not reaching the ground. It's what's called virga, and as a result, temperatures are remaining cold in the mid-30s rather than the mid to upper 30s. Where snow showers are developing, the snowflakes are relatively light, and for the most part, accumulation is below an inch in any location. The majority of the accumulating snow is currently over the Great Lakes, specifically my alma mater, Oswego, New York, and around Buffalo, New York. So the worst of the snowfall is clearly well to the north and west, but a few scattered snow showers will be possible. Okay, I wanted to zoom in on the water vapor satellite picture so everyone gets a really good idea of exactly what's going on here. Notice that swirl around Maine. That is our upper level low. That upper level low will continue to rotate around Quebec, Maine, and parts of the St. Lawrence River Valley over the next several days. And as a result, that northwesterly flow will continue to inject cold Arctic air into the Northern Mid-Atlantic. So don't expect much in the way of an improvement from what today's experiences were. Temperatures will remain in the upper 20s to mid-30s for highs, lows in the upper teens to mid-20s for lows throughout the entire Northern Mid-Atlantic, and also each day will have a threat for scattered snow showers and flurries. Again, no significant accumulation, but some of these snow showers will make some roadways rather slick. So use caution when driving over the next several days. Now, is there a major storm coming? Well, let's take a look at the latest model guidance. Okay, now basically all eyes are on Sunday night into Monday for a potential major winter storm for the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic. First, let me say this right off the bat, that the model guidance up to this point has been a little bit, shall we say, erratic, and I would not trust any details. However, I think we have a pretty good idea of the type of storm we are going to be dealing with. A few things I want to point out. First of all, this is the Canadian model guidance from the Penn State eWall. Honestly, I could have used any model guidance to basically illustrate what I'm going to be talking about, but I like the way the Canadian looked on this particular run. First thing to point out, our ridge in the west is rather broad. There really isn't much in the way of a amplification. It's a flat ridge. And the ridge axis is further to the west than what I would like for a major winter storm for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. So that's one strike. The other strike is that the negative NAO is a little bit in a fluctuation. It's been west-based. It's going to be west-based almost all this week. But then it shifts a little bit further out to the east, and that's important because that is going to also allow the storm that develops to track a little bit further north and west. And of course, the other factor here is that we have a lot of energy coming in from the west, which means that this storm is going to move pretty quickly. So when we put all that together, the way I see this storm evolving is that it's going to cut through the central and northern plains, intensify over the Ohio Valley, and then eventually be transitioned towards the northern mid-Atlantic and New England coast. This is what you call basically a Miller B type storm. Miller A is when a low pressure center starts out over the Gulf Coast and shoots right up the southeast coast and up through the benchmark of 40 north, 70 west. And those type of storms, you usually have a pretty good bet of seeing a major snowstorm out of them depending on the exact track. Miller B storms are a little bit more complicated because you have to figure out when is the changeover from the primary of over inland locations like the Ohio Valley or Great Lakes to coastal locations like the New Jersey coast or Long Island coast or Long Island coastal waters. So there's a lot of indecision and volatility in the forecast when you're dealing with this type of storm. Overall details I'm expecting with this storm though is that I do expect a transition to the coast. The reason why I do expect that is because all model guidance, regardless of the solution, eventually drives the majority of the PVA towards the coastal plain. If the majority of the PVA, which I have circled in yellow here, was focused more towards, let's say, Buffalo, then this was definitely an interior storm. There would be no transition to the coast whatsoever. But eventually there will be. Does this mean that it's going to be a snowstorm for New York City and Philadelphia? No. The way this pattern's setting up, I think what we're looking at is a storm that basically starts out as snow for most locations, changes over to rain as the warm air overwhelms the storm, and then depending on when the changeover of the coastal low to the coast will determine whether the rain changes back to snow or sleet or it just stays as rain. So there's a lot of indecisions, but I think we're dealing with a mixed precipitation type of storm. Whether it goes to snow to sleet back to snow or snow to rain or mostly all rain with a little bit of star snow, that really depends on the exact details of the timing of the transition towards the coast. But for right now, I do not see this as a major I-95 snowstorm. The pieces just aren't there. The ridge isn't in the right place that you'd want it to be. The negative NAO isn't in the right place you want it to be. And there's way too much energy coming in from the west coast, specifically from the upper level low around the Gulf of Alaska. So there's clearly some things to watch out here for, especially since we are still dealing with a negative NAO pattern, just further to the east, and as a result you end up with a slightly warmer storm and one that can move further north and west. For the record, I am not really buying the idea of the primary low pressure center reaching all the way into the northern portions of the St. Lawrence River Valley. I like the idea of it, of the low pressure reaching the Cleveland area before starting to transition to the coast, and the primary low pressure center, the primary storm transitions towards the coast on Monday morning off the New Jersey coast. I like that solution a little bit better. I think it's a little more reasonable with the negative NAO pattern, even if it is east-based in place. Now, if the negative NAO is a little bit more stronger, a little bit more west-based, then we could be looking at earlier transition. But the primary story here is that this storm is not likely to be a major snowstorm at this time for the I-95 corridor. Locations north and west of there, like let's say northeastern Pennsylvania, certainly the Hudson River Valley, and most likely New England, that's a different story. That's something we're going to have to watch out for a more significant snowfall potential. But again, everything depends on timing, even for the interior. Thank you for choosing NYNJPA Weather as your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm meteorologist Stephen DiMartino. Have an excellent day.